All right. Let me know. Okay, we should be back up and going. Awesome. Well, I'm so glad all of you guys are here today, and we're going to talk all about nurturing your community and learning how to nurture your community by sharing stories and valuable content so that you're not only building trust with your audience, but you're able to show up consistently and just gain that community, start finding people that are interested in your products, wanting to learn more from you. Why is it doing this? Hold on, now it's not letting me move. Sorry guys, I don't know what I'm doing apparently. There we go. Okay, sorry. Okay, we're gonna start again. So nurturing your community. We're gonna talk about nurturing your community, sharing stories, sharing valuable content that builds trust with your audience and has you showing up consistently. One of the things that I work with my clients on is helping them really get really clear on not always selling to our community. I think a lot of times, especially in the online space, it might feel like people are selling to us, giving us so much information. They're always wanting us to buy from them. So I found the quote that says, if people like you, they'll, sorry, my screen, why is my screen? Okay, if people like you, they'll listen to you, but if they trust you, they'll do business with you. As anybody else, you might have heard this quote before. Zig Ziglar has been around forever. He's one of the first coaches that I followed when I started my business back in 2007. And he was just somebody who was great to listen to and be able to share. All of his content was just something that was great for adding value to your business. All right, so today we're going to talk about 5 different things. We're going to talk about nurturing versus promotion. So how to nurture your community, as well as how to sell to them and to get them to want to use the products that you have and engage with you that way. We're also going to talk about creating a 90-day plan. We want to walk away from today. You're going to have a lot of content ideas that you're going to be able to take from today and implement into your calendar so that you can start showing up for your community, whether it's through blog posts, if it's on social media through postings, or just different topic ideas that you can start sharing with your audience. We're also going to talk a little bit about knowing your audience and making sure that you're creating content that's actually resonating with them. A lot of times we have a lot of stories to share, valuable information, but if we don't sell or share it in a way that's actually relating to our audience, then it can miss the mark and we're not going to necessarily attract people in that we want to. And then we're going to talk about sharing your story and why it's important to share the pieces of your life of why you are in the business that you're in so that you can resonate with your audience. And then we're going to also talk about what is valuable content. There's so much different content that we can share, but how do we make sure that we're sharing it in a way that's valuable and engaging to our audience? So what do you need? You don't really need anything. If you have your calendar next to you or a piece of paper, it's always great. I love to take notes. Feel free to take notes. At the end, you'll have an opportunity to ask any questions and I can answer those for you. But my goal for this is really to give you enough content today so that you can map out the next 90 days of ways to show up to your community and add value and engage with them. So how do you show up and build trust while also sharing why you're the one who should hire or what that they should hire or buy from? And it's all in the nurturing. So we don't want to sell constantly. I don't know about you, but I watch a lot of online entrepreneurs and just business owners, and sometimes I feel like every single piece of content that they're sharing is just trying to get me to buy from them. And that's great because we all have a business and we have to make sales, but it's also nice to be able just to nurture that audience. And sometimes it's great to just get emails that are adding value, and it's not something where I feel pressure to buy or constantly spend money. You want to actually just engage and add more to their life so that you're able to nurture them. And then nurturing your community it's one of my favorite ways to build trust. I found really quickly when I started my business that it was hard to make those contacts and build those relationships without building trust first. So it's something that I've put kind of as the front burner of my business, is making sure that every single person that I meet, whether it's online or at a business networking event in the community, that I'm taking the time to actually get to know who they are And they're not just another number or another person on my email list. It's actually another human being, somebody that I want to do business with, somebody that I want to get to know, like, and trust. So how do you show up in your community so that you're able to do that? So some of you guys don't know me. A lot of you guys are familiar faces, which I love. But for those of you who don't know me, my name's Darlene Holly, and I am a branding and business clarity coach. And I have been coaching since 2007, and I work with online service-based entrepreneurs to help them grow their business by helping them create a brand, not only a business, but an actual brand where they can influence and gain and influence in the community to grow their business. And if you guys are on social media and you want to, feel free to tag me on Instagram at Darlene Holly. If you want to share in the stories that you're on today's training, or share any quotes or tips that you learned from today, feel free to share that with your community. And then on Facebook, it's I am Darlene Holly. Just another thing too, when I started my business, like I said, it was back in 2007. And I wasn't online. All of my business was grown on the streets, connecting at networking events local to me at the time. I live in California now, but at the time I lived in Las Vegas, and all of my business was grown just going to networking events, building relationships, going to coffee appointments, building those relationships, sending emails, having phone calls. And I love that we now have this opportunity to have an online business as well, where we're able to do virtual meetings just like we are today with Zoom, in different ways like that. And the reason I started my business was I was a single mom at the time. I'm a mom of 4 children, and my oldest is 23 now. But at the time when he was young, I was finding that I was working in retail management. I was working 60 plus hours a week. I was exhausted. I don't know if any of you guys can relate to this, but I was working in retail management where I didn't make my own schedule. I didn't have a chance to be home on the evenings and the weekends. And I was really looking for a way to have flexibility, to be home with my son, do something that I love doing. And that's how I found business coaching, as I realized quickly, like once I was looking for a different career path, that I was coaching and training as an HR operations manager for large retail boxes. And I was able to do that on my own terms and my own flexibility of a schedule by starting my own business up. So that's a little bit about me, in case you don't know, if you didn't know that about me. So today we want to talk about nurturing versus promotion. So scheduling time to promote your business, to actually make sales. And then there's also a time to nurture and just add value and give back to your community. And the beautiful thing about the online space that we have now is we're able to do that pretty seamlessly through our social media posts, through our emails, through our blogs. We're able to share value during some of our posts, and then other times we're able to use that platform as a way to grow our business and to create sales. So I just want to talk a little bit about the difference of it, because I think so often you see so many people that are selling, that it's nice just to have some value given. And I feel like as you're growing your audience and building your email lists and growing your business as a whole, the more value that you're able to give back, the more your business is going to grow. I know a lot of people get a little nervous, like they're like, if I share everything that I know, why are people going to come and purchase from me? Why would people want a package that I'm offering, or a coaching promotion, or those different things? But the more that you are able to nurture them and love on them and share information and value, and those things work for them, the more they're going to actually want to come to you when they're ready to be held accountable, or to take the next step, or to get that product that they're looking for. So when you're thinking about different blog posts or things that you can share, try to give as much value as possible, because they're going to remember that they learned something from you, and they're going to want to keep coming back to you again and again. And don't forget too, I know some of my clients have come to me and they're like, well, how do I promote and how do I nurture this audience? I only have maybe a few people on my email list. I've had clients that have had like 35 people on their email list, and they were making sales, excuse me, because they were nurturing and they were growing their list and giving value back to them. So it doesn't matter whether you have 10 people on your email list, or if you have 1,000 or 50,000 people on your email list. The concept's the same. You just want to keep adding value and keep showing up for them. So when you're promoting your products, you're asking your clients or your prospects for an investment, either in you and your services that you provide, or into the products that you offer. and it's the next steps to working for you. So when you're promoting your products, and I put on here too, affiliation as a promotion as well. So if you're ever an affiliate for another company or promoting somebody else's work, that counts as like the sales process because you're selling for somebody else and you're usually getting a benefit or a kickback from that as well. So anytime that you're selling, whether it's your product or somebody else's, we classify that as promoting and doing sales. Where nurturing is all about building trust. So you want to know who your audience is and how you can show up for them. So it's important that you're adding value. And then I get asked all the time, how much do you nurture? How much do you promote? Which is the best way to do that? And I say always a good rule of thumb is whatever is good, feels comfortable for you is the right answer. But at the same time, if you want actual percentages, 50-50 rule is usually what I suggest my clients to do. You're going to show up and add value 50% of the time and nurture and love on them. And then the other 50% of the time, you're going to ask for sales or share information that might lead them to a discovery call or a clarity call, or maybe you're selling them into a group program or a workshop or a one-on-one program, or asking them to buy a product. All right, and so what do you need to do to nurture? You need to give tons of value when you're promoting your products. So share information that is bigger than just what your clients are looking for at that moment. How can you show up for them to add value, make them feel like they're learning something? It's an educational, you're educating them on something that they're learning. I also encourage, whether you're nurturing or promoting something, to have some kind of call to action at the end of it. So if you're writing an email to your audience through your newsletter list, or even if it's a social media post, at the end of it, there be some kind of call to action there. Whether it's click this link to buy my product, click this link to schedule a call, or maybe it's just click this link and answer this question. You know, it could have been like something simple, like yesterday was National Ice Cream Day. So I noticed a lot of people's comments on social media they were talking about what their favorite ice cream is, and the call to action to their post was some valuable information about something. They shared maybe what their favorite ice cream was, and then the call to the action at the end was just to have their people in their community to say, you know, I like mint chocolate chip. That's my favorite. It's just a way to engage and open conversation with them. So it doesn't have to be always leading to a sale. It's just a way that you can continue the conversation and engage with your audience. And then also it shows off that you're an expert every time that you're giving value and sharing information with them. So the more that you share, the more value you give, the higher of a chance that people are going to think of you as the expert in a topic. So if they are, a lot of our businesses are built off of referrals. So the more value you give to other people, you're going to find that whether it's online in communities there, or maybe if it's out in the community locally as well, that you're going to start to be known as an expert. So when somebody says, oh, I'm looking for XYZ, people are going to be like, oh, I know exactly who you need to call. This person's an expert in whatever it is they're looking for. So you're going to start to stand out and attract people that way. And then, so what makes nurturing powerful is knowing that you're giving value. And there's so many different ways nowadays that we can show up and give value. I just wanted to talk about a few of those. So you can show up and be interviewed on podcasts, or you could have your own podcast as well. Maybe you don't love writing and you don't want to create a blog, but you like doing audio. Create a podcast, show up that way. You can also do live videos, whether it's on Facebook or on Instagram. You can do pre-recorded ones that are on YouTube. Or just pre-record the video and then share it on social media, embed it into your newsletter. You can show up and do weekly recaps. You can create a blog, a newsletter, any way that you can really share a story to attract your audience and kind of engage with them is a great way to show up, and it's a great way to just be adding value. You're not selling in those instances. You're just showing up, speaking on a topic that you're an expert in or something that you enjoy talking about that's wrapped around your business, and it's a great way for you just to nurture and show up. All right. So getting in the habit of building out 90 days worth of content. So when I'm working with my clients, I always encourage them to know what's going to happen over the next 90 days. Some of you guys have been in my community for a little bit, and you've probably noticed that usually every 90 days I host some kind of free 90-day workshop, either locally or online. And I do the same process with my clients as well to make sure they have the next 90 days mapped out so they know exactly what they're working on, when they're working on it, so they don't have to guess at what's happening. I think the hardest part about being an entrepreneur is sometimes waking up and coming downstairs to your home office or going to your coffee shop or to your co-working space and not having a plan for what you want to accomplish that day. It's important to know what you're working on and when you're working on it. So I teach my clients to create a plan for when they're writing their blogs, what the topic's going to be as well. And sometimes that can fluctuate as far like putting in the plan. You might say that I'm going to write my, like I personally blog, I write my newsletter and my blogs on Mondays, and I batch that out. So usually between 9 and 12, that's my focus for that morning on Mondays. And I know exactly, or I know that I'm doing that every single Monday, but every Monday might look a little bit different as far as what I'm writing about or what that content's going to look like. So part of the goal for today is to have you take some of these things that we're going to talk about and put it into your calendar so that when you wake up next Monday morning, you know exactly what you're going to work on, and then you also know what topic you're going to write on. I've found for myself that if I give myself some space to know what the topic's going to be to write on, that when I sit down at my computer on Monday mornings, and I already have known for the past 5 days that I'm going to create a workshop, say, on nurturing your community, it gives me time to start thinking about it beforehand. And when I sit down at my computer, I'm able to take that information and start writing my newsletter, writing my blog, writing my social media post, whatever it is that I want to create that day, without, it takes some of the guesswork out. If I don't have a plan and I just sit down on a Monday morning and know that I want to write a blog, but I have no idea what I want to write it on, then I get completely stumped and I have no idea what to write on. And I can waste sometimes 30 minutes or an hour just trying to think of ideas or research ideas. And when I get stuck, I do go for a walk, or I'll kind of walk away from the computer for a little bit so I can take time to get creative and think of it. If I already know over the weekend, because I've looked at my calendar on Friday and know what topic I'm writing on Monday, it gives me that space just to start to think about it and have my wheels turning. And I can sometimes open up a note tab on my phone in the middle of the night, or while I'm out. If any kind of topic idea pops into my head, I can just write little notes down, and it just takes some of the guesswork out. So I personally always feel like you need to have a plan, and in that plan can be adding value and just nurturing, but then you also want to build into it when you're promoting and when you're selling to your community. If you have a launch coming up for a group program, or if you know that you have a couple one-on-one spots for your service business ahead of time, then you can start to map that into your calendar and make sure that you're promoting at the right point so that you always are attracting the right clients in and growing your business. And then one of the ways that I do that, so if I know that in my 90-day plan that I have a launch coming up, and I'm just going to use the example that, say, I have a one-on-one client opening up in, say, August 25th or something like that, then I can look at my calendar when I'm mapping things out, and I can work backwards to that date. So week 4, I might want to make sure I want to fill that one-on-one coaching spot. So I work backwards from there, and then 4 weeks before that, I'm planting the seeds. Maybe I'm sharing valuable content that's going to be the perfect information that my client's going to need to start listening to what I'm saying, so that they're listening as I'm giving that value and sharing that information to them. Where week 2, maybe they're showing up to my live streams. Maybe they're engaging in some of the conversations with me. And then week 3, that's when I'm going to start promoting that I have a one-on-one spot open. And they're going to start to listen like, oh, I do need a coach. I'm going to listen a little bit more to what Darlene might have to say, because this is something, the information that she's been sharing over the past few weeks has led me to want to learn more. And then week 4, that's where the selling deadline is. That's where I'm going to say, this is the opportunity you have to work with me. I'm only taking one person, and are having people do like discovery calls, or getting on the phone with me to talk and see if it's a good fit, or having people direct message me on Instagram or on Facebook asking questions to see if it's going to work for them. before they decide, but it just gives you a chance to, before you make that sale, I've already added value for 3 weeks prior to before I even started marketing, if a spot's available. And so you don't have to play the game of not knowing what to say to your audience. So it's important just to have your calendar completely filled up and know exactly what's coming up, when it's going to happen, so that you don't have to guess at what you're doing. And there's a lot of fun ways you can do that as well. So when you're adding value and just nurturing your community, you can show up and use fun things. I just mentioned that yesterday was National Ice Cream Day. It's a great way just to use, and don't use national holidays every single day, obviously, because there is actually a national holiday every single day. But it's a fun way just to kind of sprinkle in different content into your community that can kind of be a fun way to engage. So in August, let's see, we have National Girlfriend Day coming up, National Chocolate Chip Cookie Day. And then there's fun ones like Labor Day is a great one that you can talk about, maybe spending time on vacation with your family or getting ready for back to school. And then back in October, there's things like National Taco Day. And some of these things it's not always as easy to transcribe it into your business and what you're talking about. But sometimes you can tell a story about something different and then add in a little piece of what the national holiday is, just to kind of engage and ask questions, and then use that as a call to action to grow your community and just have that engagement going. So scheduling out your content. So what do you want to talk about and how do you want to show up? Like I said, I like to brainstorm ahead of time, make sure I know exactly what's on my calendar coming up. When we create content blindly, that's when we freeze and don't know what to talk about. So if you're anything like me, if I have no clue what I'm writing about, I will sit there for hours and procrastinate and get on Facebook and do so many things that I'm not actually working. I'm wasting time and procrastinating. It also gives you the various touch points that you need so that you're not flying by the seat of your pants. So why I'm creating this and where is this piece of content leading my audience to? That's a question that I always ask myself. Why am I creating this? And what do I want my ideal client, my audience, to do when they read the piece of content or they see it? So emailing your list is a non-negotiable. So most of the content that I create personally, I write for my newsletter. But not everybody does it that way. Some people specifically like to position themselves where they maybe spend more time on Instagram, or maybe they found that a lot of their ideal clients are spending time on Facebook. So knowing which platforms your audience is on the most will allow you the chance to get to know them. And then it also allows you to create content for that platform, because you can't create the same message for every single platform when it comes to social media. But you can repurpose and tweak it and edit it. So I always create my my nurture sequences and my promotion stuff from my email list, which then goes to my blog, which then goes to Facebook and to Instagram and all the other places that I post it. But know which is the most important to you and which is the most important to your audience. If you have an email list, then create your email or your content for your email list first, and then everything else from there will transpire. And then also know what do you want the information to do for your audience? Do you want to send them to an opt-in? Do you want to send people to your website? Do you want to invite them to a masterclass like we did today? Are you telling them to show up at a Facebook Live when you're doing a Facebook Live video? Or are you creating content pre-recorded on YouTube and you're trying to get your audience to go to YouTube to view that information? So know kind of what you're creating and where you want your audience to go to from there. So one of the things that I'm always working on, and one of the things I talk a lot with my clients is making sure you know exactly who your audience is. You can create a ton of content, and if it's not directed towards your ideal client and to your audience, then it's not going to be working for you. So you might feel like you're creating a ton of blog posts, you're writing newsletters, you're sharing a lot of information, but maybe nobody's responding. Maybe every time you ask a question, nobody responds, which is totally normal. We all get that. More often than not. But if you are creating content that's not relating to your audience, they're not going to be listening, and they're not going to be attracted in to want to listen to what you have to say. So ask yourself, what type of content is your audience drawn to online? And make sure that you're connecting with them in that way. And then what topics would support your ideal client over the next 30 days. So take a second and just think, if I was to create content today that's going to engage with my audience and have me showing up, adding value, what types of things would my ideal client actually want to hear from me? What things would be important to them? And then based on what you know about your audience, what parts of your story would resonate the most with them? So think about, in our content today, it's important that we share story and what we're talking about. If something happened to you yesterday, how can you share that story with your audience to connect it to something in your business that maybe they have going on? So just get really clear of who your ideal audience is and what kind of information you can share to connect with them. And I always say that you're never done with ideal client work. You're always going to be doing it. As soon as you figure out who your clients are, there's going to be another piece of information that you find out about as you talk to other people. So you're always learning. You're always finding new ways that you can engage with your ideal client and what works for them and what they like and what they want to hear. So before we can determine what content will best serve our audience, we need to know exactly who our audience is. And a great way that you can do market research to find out what your audience actually needs and what they want is to do market research. Find out, ask them. You can do that through Instagram, doing stories, asking polls, asking them different questions to see what engages with them. Ask open-ended questions. What kind of products would you like to see? What kind of promotions or services would you like to have to see me offer? You can ask those in Facebook groups. So if you're if you're being of service online and you're asking questions inside other groups or engaging with other people and asking questions, just jump into other conversations, see what people are asking already and engage with them and ask more questions to find out what they're looking for, and then take that research and use that to write a blog. Or you might put a question up and have a bunch of different comments, and that might be, you might get like your 5 top tip strategies off of somebody else's Facebook post that you can turn around and turn it into your content and then create a blog post from. And then you can also email your list. Usually every 90 days, I send an email to my list just asking them questions that they can respond to and hit reply. And then that information that I get back from those replies, I'm able to use for my content going forward to see what questions they have, what's something that they're curious about right now. And then piggyback off of conversations that you see other people having. So I said that a second ago. So if you are at a networking event or if you're in a Facebook group and engaging in conversation with other people, listen. Sometimes I get probably 90% of my ideas by just listening to other conversations or other inside other Facebook groups where people are just asking questions and engaging, and it gets my brain going, it gets my wheels spinning, and then I'm able to take that idea and turn it into content for my audience because I already know it's something that would resonate and engage with them as well. And then you can also ask questions on your post and just have people DM you. So direct message you back. Maybe it's on Instagram, post a question, have people DM you to give you the response back, and then you can use that information. So your story matters. So one of the things that I teach a lot is making sure that you're sharing pieces of your life and pieces of you in your marketing so that you can attract your ideal clients in and they can see themselves in you. So when you're sharing your story and you're coming up with different content ideas, you want to ask, what's happening in my life that I can share that I can share in a valuable way? And then you want to survey your audience and see what they need the most at that time. And then number 3 is pay attention to your clients and ask questions and community members. So ask questions, pay attention to what's going on from clients and people that are in your community. They're going to be the ones that give you the most insight, is the people that you're working with on a day-to-day basis or people that are engaging with you. And then despite whatever it is that you're sharing, I try to tie at least one sentence into whatever I'm writing that is a story, a piece of something that's happened in my life right now or something maybe that's happened in the past. And it doesn't have to be long. I get a lot of people that ask me questions like, how much information do I need to share? Do I have to tell the whole entire story? And the answer is always no. Only share what feels good to you and then what's going to resonate with your audience. If it's something that doesn't even connect to your audience, then it's not a story to share in that moment. So I want you to think just for a second. I know with us being virtual, I'm not going to have you, I'm not going to take a ton of time right now to have you think of this, but I want you to write down, maybe even after this workshop, just sit back and think of 10 different stories that you can share with your audience that will provide value to them, that tie in so they get to know a little bit about who you are. This could be a story of, maybe it's your origin story from why you started your business in the first place. It could be something that happened to you last week, and you see a way that you can connect that story to what you're talking about today on social media or in your blog. But just think of different stories that you can connect that'll add value and share it with your audience, and think of 10 ways that you can share that story. So I'm not going to have you do that right now, like I said, but at the end, I want to have you swing back to this. And I'm going to send you guys a handout as well afterwards, where you'll be able to just take a few minutes and think of what those stories are, so that you can start showing up and see how you can share a piece of you and your story and your life into the content that you're creating. So when pulling solely from your story, it's important to remember a few things, and you want to ask yourself a couple of questions before you share that information. So what is the topic of your story? Why are you sharing the story? So what is the topic? How does this resonate to my audience? If it doesn't resonate to your audience, then don't share it. Does it provide value to my audience? And if so, what value does it provide? And then if you don't answer yes to the 3 questions above, then it might not be the right time for that story. So you need to look and see, how can I either shift the story so that it resonates and it's adding value to my audience, or maybe I need to put this on the back burner and not even share it today, but maybe I can come back and share it later or another time. I think it's Brene Brown who says that you don't want to share the story when you have a scab like on your arm, like you're still hurt from it. But when it's healed, then you're able to come back and share that story because you've walked through it and you've gone through it. So I always make sure that if I'm in the middle of that, whatever I'm trying to share.
De todos modos, lo parece seguir a ese hombre no le gusta nada, ¿verdad? Entonces Carlos pone, es un ángel, déjenlo en paz. Y después Pablo manda, hay límites, Charlie. Inclusive usted, ciertas películas taquilleras le gustan mucho, etc. Alonso a todo le pone 2 estrellas, menos a las películas o cortos que tienen menos de 100 views en Letterboxd y cuya distribución fue en un sitio underground con password de la Deep Web. Y yo, honestamente, yo...
All right, sorry about that. All right, so I'm just making sure that you're sharing something that you're not in the middle of still. Sometimes if it's too close to you or it's something that you're emotional about and you can't talk about it without getting upset or emotional, then don't share it yet. You're not ready. And it doesn't mean that you can't share that story later on with your audience. It just means that now is not the time, so put it to the side. I personally use Trello, and I keep all my story ideas in there. And sometimes I'll have an idea for a topic and I'll know it's not the right time for me to share it yet. But that doesn't mean that maybe next week or next month or next year, that story might not be appropriate to share with my audience. So I just kind of keep it in what I call a story bank, and keep it off to the side so that I can remember that I have that story and get triggered again for what that thought was. And I just don't share it today. I just wait and share it later on. And then consistency. So it's important that you have a plan in place, knowing how you're going to show up for your audience. So being really consistent about that. What does that look like for you? Do you want to create, like for myself, I create a weekly newsletter and a blog, and I share that information out to my audience. Some people do 2 or 3 emails a week. It's important that you find what works best for you. Not everybody works the same. I personally don't like to get 3 emails a week from people. To me, it's too much. So I found for myself that I feel really comfortable and good showing up in my clients or my prospects' newsletter box once a week. So I email once a week, and it's either just an email. Sometimes it has a link to a blog post. Sometimes it's me asking questions and just adding value. And then sometimes it's me showing up saying, hey, I have this new program, or I have this new offering, or hey, this is what's going on in my business. And it's a way for me to sell and engage with them. So ask yourself, how do you want to show up for your audience? And whatever you pick, if that's just one time per week, that's totally fine. You don't have to email people. You don't have to show up on social media and post 2 or 3 times a day, or even 5 days a week. If 1 time a week or 2 times a week feels good to you, then go with that. Just be consistent with it, and make sure that if you set up that you're going to send out a newsletter once a week to your audience, that once a week you send out that newsletter. Some people like to do it on Tuesdays at 9 a.m. They send out their newsletter every single week. Some people just show up somewhere between Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday each week with a newsletter, and that's completely fine. Your audience is going to, basically you're training your audience to know that you're going to be in communications with them and to watch for that. And then also think about too, as part of that, how does your audience like to consume content? Think about who your ideal client is. Are they a busy mom? Do they have time to watch an hour YouTube video? Do they have time? Maybe they have no time at all, and maybe your ideal client only has 5 minutes to watch a video. Do they like to consume their content through a blog in written form? Do they like to have it in video form? Do they like to have short posts or long posts? Do they like an audio? They don't even want to see your face necessarily. Maybe they just want an audio that you can send to them once a week. So maybe that's through a podcast, or maybe that's just through you creating an audio and linking it to your blog or to your newsletter. But find out how your audience wants to consume the information, because if your ideal client is a busy mom who is working hard and barely has time to do anything, and she wants to grow a business, but she doesn't know how to, and she doesn't have a lot of time, if you're creating 45-minute videos, she's probably not sitting down and listening to it or watching it every single week. But maybe if you send her a 10-minute video once a week in your newsletter, that's going to be enough information for her to get what the information she needs, and then work from that. And then also, what platform does your audience prefer to get content? Kind of goes back up to it. Does she like a YouTube video? Does she want written blogs? Find out what it is that works best for them. And then how often does your audience want you to show up? Is it once a week, twice a week, 3 times a week? And then balance that with what feels good to them and then what feels good to you, and make sure you have that blend that way. And then you can do weekly themes as well. Maybe you create like a weekly show where you show up on Tuesdays and you do a 5-minute Facebook Live video every Tuesday. Maybe you have your audience post questions in your Facebook group, and then once a month or once a week you show up and you answer all those questions on a live video. Or maybe you take those questions and turn it into content to feed back to your audience. But find what works with you. And then also find out what's the best time for your audience. As a business owner yourself, you get to pick your own schedule, which is awesome. But if you're only available to create a Facebook Live at, say, 9 o'clock on Tuesday mornings, but most of your clients work 9 to 5 still, and they haven't got out of corporate yet, but they're trying to start a business and they can't jump on a Facebook Live at 9 o'clock on Tuesdays, survey your audience. Maybe you switch your time to showing up and doing Facebook Lives at 6 o'clock on Tuesday nights instead. So find that balance that works for you in your life and what you're trying to create, but then also keep your audience in mind as well while you're doing that. And then ask yourself, what does this look like for me? How do I want to show up? How often do I want to show up? And know it's okay that you are uniquely you. You don't have to do what anybody else is doing. You don't have to do what the top gurus are doing. You don't have to make yourself look like what everybody else is doing. Just do what feels really good to you. And that's what's going to show up authentically, and it's going to attract your clients into you. It's going to make them want to listen and learn from you. But you do need to be consistent. So whatever visual plan you come up with for showing up for your audience and for nurturing, just make sure it's consistent so they know what to expect from you, and you start to build trust with them. And then scheduling those pieces into your calendar. So we talked about that a little bit earlier. So making sure that you know if you want to show up and do a Facebook Live on Tuesday mornings at 9 a.m., and that's something that your clients are going to be looking for, then show up at 9 a.m. and make sure you put that on your calendar as well. So as you're mapping out your 90 days, write on there every single Tuesday at 9 o'clock that you're going to be showing up. And then maybe you have the topic written down ahead of time as well, so you can start thinking about what you want to say. And then think about it as, okay, my audience probably has about 10 minutes because I know she's a busy mom. So I want to make sure that I get to the point really quickly and I don't spend the first 5 minutes of the video waiting for people to get on, and then my video goes for 20 or 30 minutes. Like, you want to get in, share the information, add value for your audience, and then from there log out. And the great thing about doing videos or having that different content is you're able to then take that and turn that into a blog post or share it out on the other channels. And it just gives your audience a little boost too. It's just another way to show up and add value with them. So there's different ways that you can give boosts to your audience. And I do these kind of sporadically, and I try to plan them ahead of time in my calendar. But sometimes I will decide to do a Facebook Live just out of the blue. Nobody necessarily knows, or maybe I mark it a couple of times beforehand to let them know that I'm doing that. Or maybe I decide I want to host a challenge, and it's going to be a 5-day challenge, and it's going to teach you all about nurturing your community. I might show up every day for a week at 10 o'clock in the morning and create a short video of something that you can implement each day. So just find different ways that you can give a boost to your audience that maybe you don't do on a regular. If you don't regularly even do Facebook Lives or challenges, see how you might start to add a little bit of that promotion into your calendar so that you can start showing up for them. And different ways you can do that. Like I said, you can do Facebook Lives. You can do a masterclass or a webinar, kind of like what we're doing today. You can do Instagram takeovers on somebody else's Instagram, maybe trade with another colleague who has a different business but a similar audience, and have them take over your Instagram and talk to their audience, and then they'll take over yours and they'll talk to your audience. And that way you're getting yourself a little bit more exposure. You could do a series over the week on Instagram stories. You could do an email challenge where you're just sending an email for 5 days straight, or 7 days, or 30 days, whatever that looks like for you. It might be a video challenge. You can also reuse your pre-recorded series and share that information every so often. Any way that you can show up and add value. Maybe you're in the process of creating a new opt-in or a new freebie to promote a new product. How can you take that new offer and send it to the people that are already on your newsletter list as a free gift to them, maybe before you launch it to the world as an opt-in? If they're already on your newsletter list, you don't have to get them on your newsletter list again. Just share that information out with them as an extra way to say, hey, this is going to be coming out soon. I'm going to be using this to attract more people into our community, but I wanted you to see it first. You get the first view of it. And then you can also get testimonials from that information to use for your new promotion that's coming up. And then what is valuable content? So at the end of the day, creating value means enhancing their lives. So what might be valuable to you and to me might be different. So how can your audience consume it? What ways do they need to get that information? Do they have time to read, listen to podcasts? Make sure that whatever platform you choose, that it's a good fit with your audience. And then the valuable content enhances your audience. So the more that you're able to give to them, the more it's going to resonate, the more they're going to want to listen, the more they're going to refer, the more they're going to want to do business with you. And there's 5 different ways that I like to say that you can share valuable content. So the first one is educational. So what's something that you can teach to your audience? That might be a blog, how to nurture your community, or 3 tips to building a better brand, or 5 ways to, whatever those educational type posts that you might be able to share of information that's going to show you as an expert. Different ways you can get value is you can just be inspirational. So trigger something within your audience that's going to just make them feel something. So maybe that's a quote, or maybe you're sharing something that's happened to you in the past, or sharing a story of any kind of inspirational thing that you might be able to share. So just think of what stories you can share to inspire and encourage them. And then you might create a reflective piece, which is you sharing a story that they're going to be able to feel like they're seeing themselves in the mirror from, where they just feel connected to you, like you're inside their mind, or you get what it is that they're going through. And it's because you've already maybe walked that path before. So maybe they see that you used to work a corporate job and now you work for yourself, and maybe your audience wants that too, and they're still working that corporate job. How do they transition over to start their own business? So how can you reflectively share information so that they can see themselves in you? And then number 4 is motivational. So just getting them to take action, motivate them to want to take the next step or to do something different with their life. And then number 5 is entertainment. And this one, I don't think is used as much as it should be, especially on the online space. But how can you entertain your clients? Maybe make them laugh a little bit, just connect at a deeper level. Think of ways that you can, maybe if something funny happens in your day, share it with them. And it doesn't have to have necessarily always something that's going to relate to the business side of stuff. Sometimes it's just being human and connecting at a deeper level. And then once you create that content, repurpose it. So think of where you can use that information that you created last week or last month or maybe a year ago. How can you repurpose that content to keep engaging with your audience? And so where do you want to share it? Write the piece of content. Where do you want to put it from there? And then decide when and where you're going to post it. So you might take a blog post from a year ago and repurpose that and share that into your newsletter. Pull up the blog post again, get more engagement on it, and just continue to use that information. Sometimes you might create a new graphic, or if it's a new post, create a graphic that's going to fit on the platform that you're doing it for. As we talked about earlier, like you can't always take the same post from Instagram to, say, Facebook to LinkedIn and those different places. Sometimes you have to create a different graphic if you have one for it to make sure it fits in the right place. But once you know what graphic you're going to use, edit the content for the platform that you're sharing it on. Just start using it, repurpose it as many times as you can. In some weeks, if you're on vacation, maybe you repurpose something that was from a year ago or from 6 months ago, because I think too often we create content and we share it that one time and then we forget about it. And we don't go back and we don't use it again. And it's living on our blog post, or it's living, way down in our threads in social media. So pull those things back up and share those out again. Repurpose them. That's a great way to show up a little bit more and engage more without having to create new content constantly. And then always ask yourself, what specifically does this provide my audience? And I like to write it down. So before I do a social media post or before I write a blog, at the end of it, I always write down, like, what is it that I want my audience to get from this? And if it's not going to settle, if it's not going to sit right with my audience, or it's not going to attract them in, then I don't always use it. Maybe I need to edit the way I'm writing it, or maybe it's just not a story that I should be sharing yet. But just ask yourself, does this provide value to my audience? And are they going to get something from it that's going to help them take those steps forward to build trust and get to know and like who I am? So I have 25 different topic ideas here, and I'm going to email these out to you as well. So don't feel like you have to write them down right now. But I think it's important to just find ways that we can share story. And these are some great ones that you can use to write a blog post, to write a newsletter, to create a social media post. You can kind of reuse them in different ways just to nurture and grow your audience. And like I said, I'm going to send those to you. So I'm going to take me off sharing because I just shared a ton of information. And those of you that have seen me in person know that I don't like doing a big workshop where I just talk. I'm more of an engager. Usually when I do this workshop, I get a chance to engage and see your faces and ask questions and like have you think and go with stuff. But yeah, so what questions do you guys have? I know I just shared a ton of information with you. What were some of the things that kind of came up for you? Anybody have anything?
So I have kind of an ongoing question in my mind. Given the, can you hear me okay?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. So I feel like I'm always trying to think of content, and given what I do, it's very, okay, how do I say it? So I feel like a lot of coaches have been through, you know, something like this experience, and they're sharing their own experience with their clients, with their potential clients. And my clients are, you know, have very different realities than I have. So they're, you know, non-native English speakers that came to the country. And I mean, I have the expertise to help them with their communication and their language. And the only thing I ever feel like I can share that's a personal story that would gel or like relate are things behind like practicing, like the importance of scheduling time and planned practice sessions. And like, so I find that I have, you know, a collection of possible blog posts and things that, you know, in order to make it feel more personal, I write those kinds of things. And I just think that's boring. You know, so I'm always struggling to figure out how to gain trust when truly I have not lived their experience. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not a health coach that has been through like a big event in my life and I came through the other side. I feel like a lot of coaches that I've, you know, communicated with, that's a strength that they have to share. And I feel like I lack because I haven't been through their experience. Does that make sense?
I see what you're saying. Yeah. So what pieces then can you connect with them to feel like just because you haven't lived it doesn't mean you can't teach it. Like you started this business for a reason. I think probably the best thing to do is go back to your why. Why are you in business?
Yeah.
Why do you do what you do? Because there's just because you have, a lot of us, like a lot of the people that I work with have gone through, they can see themselves in my story because they work 60 plus hours a week and they were a mom trying to like balance all those things. But there's a reason that you do what you do. So how can you share that information with them in a way that feels good to you, but it's giving value as well?
Yeah, I think that's what I've been struggling with lately is really getting solid and clear on my why. Like, you know, there are a lot of reasons that I run my business. So I don't know. I think that's part of what's been going on with me is just kind of not being able to answer the question, you know, which is kind of scary when I'm banking a lot on the business. However, you've given me some, like, so I think I pull back from the idea of like sharing my personal story. And I like the idea of, you know, being inspirational and educational and entertaining. Like, I feel like I can build on that. But yeah, I think you're right. I really have to kind of dig into the why and figure out a way to communicate it that's not unclear, you know, because one of the whys is I really want to help people who feel like they're being held back from something for, you know, whatever reason. And, you know, pieces of my why are because I have, you know, for example, a special needs brother who has communication issues. But that's really personal and really doesn't have specific to do with, you know, being a non-native English speaker trying to climb up the corporate ladder. You know what I mean? Like, they're not congruent. So yeah. Good.
Some of the stories that we have don't always resonate with the ideal client that we're trying to track. So that's where you have to, like, that's why I always say, like, does it resonate with your audience? Like, are they going to, like, do they need to hear it now? Or is it something that you're just sharing a story if you're just sharing a story to share a story, it's not going to, they're going to be like, oh, that's great. Like, Allison's got a great story. That's cool.
Right.
But how do you pull them back in? So some of those stories though, you might be able to like share the story, like maybe a 2 to 3 sentence piece of it. It doesn't have to be like pages long of a story. It can be like 2 sentences. Maybe you pull those 2 sentences and see, like, find some kind of connecting piece. Yeah. So that's going to relate to what they're going through currently.
Yeah. A
lot of times there is a way to connect them. But sometimes you have to get really creative. And if it's too hard to connect, then maybe that's not the right story. Like there's a different story that you can use.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. Yeah, getting creative is the key. Somebody said that to me the other day, that you jump from sharing absolutely nothing to wanting to share everything and then questioning whether it relates. Like just use a little snippet and then build on that. So I think that's where I need to work.
There's been many a times where I've written like a blog post and I'll like have like this whole like opening thing with like, this is what happened yesterday while I was walking my dog, and then this happened and that happened. And then by the time I'm looking at it, I'm like, what? Like, who cares? Like the only part of the story that like matters is this little piece. So let's pull this out, take all the fluff out of here, and then just leave that little piece and tie it into what else is, whatever, however you're going to relate it to the audience to connect with them.
Yeah.
But I think too often, like we verbally vomit so much information. Like I'm one of those people that if I'm at the grocery store and the clerk asks how my day is going, I might tell her like how my day is going. But in all reality, like that's not what she wanted to hear. She wanted to hear, oh, it's going good, or oh, it's great, we're getting ready to do XYZ. That's why I bought all these groceries, and like just like that small chatter. So you don't have to always tell every detail. You could just say, oh, I'm having a great day. Thanks for asking. I'm getting ready to go to the beach or whatever. But you don't have to say like all the other pieces that go with it.
Yeah.
Does that make sense? Because I think so often where we get caught up where we want to connect so badly with our audience that we share too much and then we lose them during that story process.
Right.
So finding the pieces of it that are going to really resonate and add value to them, and then just keeping it super simple. And then as you're tying it to your audience, like what is it, what's the story about? Like sometimes like I'll go back through like I said earlier, like I have a story bank, like I write down like stupid stuff, like some of the stuff I write down, I laugh at myself. I'm like, I have no idea how this is going to tie into my audience, and some of them don't, which is totally fine. But you can go back through and go, oh, that little story that I didn't think was going to mean anything totally relates to this piece and this story, and then just taking like little snippets, like you said, of it and adding that in.
Yeah.
And practice just doing like one-liners. Like if it feels weird and you're having a hard time like crossing them over and connecting them, just try to do like one-liner sentences of story and add that into the valuable content.
That's a great idea. Thank you.
You're welcome. Anybody else have anything? Annalyn? Yeah.
I don't know if this is going to be useful for Allison. I was thinking of this when you were asking your question. One of the coaches that I follow and I worked with, when she sent out her email, sometimes she opens with someone else's story. One of the clients that she's worked with before, and she shares a little bit, just a snippet of just what a client that she was working with was going through. And then it kind of transitions down to something else. So I don't know if that's useful, but it made me think of that, since you don't have any personal, like you were saying, maybe you can share someone else's story that might be able to make that connection with someone else. I don't know. So.
Such a good insight. I'm so glad you picked up on that, Annalyn, because I wasn't even thinking about that at this moment. But yeah, a lot of times like you're case studying, right? Like you're sharing a client's testimonial, and you can't, obviously, like you don't want to tell their whole entire story and name them, but you might pull little pieces from your conversation of like, hey, I was talking to a client the other day and this is what we were speaking about, or this is something that was in her head or was going on with her, and that's why, and then you transition it to whatever it is that you're talking about. But yeah, a case study is a great way. Yeah, because we get so much information from, as we're speaking to other people, so much information can come from that. So yeah. Thank you, Annalyn. Anybody else have any ahas or anything they want to share? You guys are all gonna be quiet on me. All right, let's real quick, if you want to go around, and you don't have to if you aren't in a place. I know Tiffany, you might not be able to come back on still, but what was like one aha moment that you had from today's topic that you can take away from here?
I'll start. I love the nurturing your clients or potential clients. Sometimes I think as a consumer myself, I get really annoyed when people are pushing too much content on me and trying to sell me something. So when I guess because I'm becoming more aware of that and knowing that I'm going to be eventually trying to sell my service to someone else, how to not be so pushy and being and nurturing and building trust, because a lot of the content and services I buy is built on trust. I follow these person for a while, and then it's like I really like what they're saying. It's been a year since I follow them that I'm ready to make this purchase. And so I really, really like the idea of just nurturing it. They might not buy it today, but that doesn't mean they're not going to buy it in the future. So.
Yeah, and you don't know who's listening or who's following you. I've had people that have come and worked with me that I didn't even know was on my radar, let alone I'm like, how did you even hear about me? And they're like, oh, I've been following you for months. And I'm like, oh, that's amazing. Like they never commented or engaged in any way. So yeah, you don't know who's listening, and they might buy from you next week or a year from now. So yeah, it's important just to nurture and love on them. Thanks, Annalyn. Fancy, do you want to go next?
Sure. And it's funny because I know you mentioned this at MeWo Live, but for whatever reason it stuck today. And that is, I'm definitely going to start a story bank. I'm kind of a storyteller anyway. And when I teach, I use stories, and I'm thinking, well, how dumb. I need to have a story bank so I can plan out my content for 90 days, because that is my goal.
Yeah. Awesome. Yay. Get it started. Yeah, you have so many stories that you can share. And sometimes it's fun, when you first started, just start thinking of every story that you could, that in the handout that I'm going to send to you guys, and we talked about it in the presentation too, but think of 10 stories that brought you to where you're at today, or just 10 stories of things that you can think of that you can see how you can take that story and turn it into something. Yeah. There's so people I love stories.
Yeah.
I love to hear stories, all the sitting by a campfire and hearing stories and just random people talking. You can get so many fun ideas just from hearing it. So stack them up in that bank. Thanks, Fancy. Anybody else have one or want to share? Anna Marie?
Oh, yes, my blog posts have been only how to design a kitchen, how to design a kids room, and they're very boring because they don't have that personal touch or the stories linking to them. So I'm gonna try to make them funnier, or to tie a before and after story with that to make them more interesting. Yeah. Because right now they're like if you search on Google, it's very stiff. Yeah, my writing is very stiff.
Okay. Yeah. So see how you can add some fun to it.
And some personality. Yes.
Yeah, and use the 5. Do a motivational one, and then do an inspirational one, and then do a reflective, and then an educational. You don't have to always do educational. How can you share a funny story that your clients would love to hear? Yeah, that's awesome.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's fun to kind of mix it up sometimes and just get creative with it, because we can very easily, at least I'll speak for myself, I'm a creature of habit. Sometimes I can just get in that wheel where I'm doing the same thing over and over again, and it's when you add something fun to it, all of a sudden everything else will shift. And you're like, oh, I got another idea, or oh, I can try this and see how this works. And it's all a testing game, right? Some of the topics that I've written on that I thought was gonna get a ton of engagement has gotten nothing. And then other things where I'm like, oh, no one's gonna engage with this, whatever. And then I'll have 15 comments or 30 comments, and I'm so you never know what's gonna resonate that day and how it's gonna be taken by somebody else. So it's fun to mix it up a bit. Anybody else have a takeaway they wanna share?
I can share one more thing. I think something I don't think about is how my ideal client consumes content. That I didn't even consider that really. What do they do? And when I ask myself that question, I know that for the content that I'm providing, I think video and audio is really valuable. So I've got to get off my butt and do some video and audio. And I don't want to.
You can do it. It's so fun. Yeah.
Yeah, I can't wait till it becomes fun. Sorry, I talked over you. What?
No, I was saying it's I don't even know what it said. It's like it's fun to like try to do it different way. And something like you said, like the first 5 may not be amazing.
Right.
But the more that you do it, the more you practice with it. And you'll be able to tell too, like, oh, this is really working. This is connecting. Like people are engaging more, and just by the testing and measuring. Like I'm a big testing and measure. Like I love to test and measure. Like I'll try something new, and sometimes I'm like, that didn't work so well. Okay, that's not going to work. Or I might do it 5 more times, and I'm like, oh, that's what I need to do. Like I need to add this into it, or take this away, or find ways that you're going to be able to engage with them more. So yeah, do some more videos. Do it.
Be my first video, or that.
Let us know when you're doing it. We'll be there to support you.
Okay, I will. Thank you.
Yeah, video still, like, it's not my favorite either. It's not my favorite, but in this day and age, that's what people are consuming. Like people want to either listen to a podcast or they want to listen to a valuable video. They don't necessarily want to read as much anymore. And I'm still I'm transitioning a ton, like over the past few years. Like my business used to be completely on the ground. I did nothing online. So transitioning it to online over the past few years has been different. And now it's like, I need to do more videos. I need to find ways to engage in different ways, because nobody wants to read a blog anymore. Like they will, but if you give them other avenues, like you might find your engagement goes even higher. But it's testing and measuring. And then you might find, actually nobody listens to my videos, but they read my blogs, because every single one of us has a different ideal client, and they all like to consume content in a different way. So I think that the testing and measuring to see what really works for you is gold. And then Tiffany said so doing story, so Tiffany, doing stories on Instagram has helped a ton of people grow their business. People are listening to stories, or not listening. I guess they're listening sometimes if they're video, but they're watching stories a lot more than they are reading through the surfing through the feeds. So yeah, and that's where your audience is at, Tiffany. So that's perfect that you've been able to notice that you have higher engagement. And Sandy, did you have any takeaways that you wanted to share with us, or Alicia?
I like the idea of the boosts.
Yeah.
I hadn't thought of doing, some extra things in addition to the normal day-to-day stuff.
Yeah. What's something that you can think of that you'd like to do a boost of for in the next couple of weeks?
Since I'm not doing regular videos, I might start with doing a video or Facebook Live.
Awesome.
And I don't know, I have to think of some other stuff.
Yeah, and it gets fun, like especially like if you sit down with your 90-day calendar and like start plugging in like where you want to show up, and then you find ways that you can kind of boost in there as well. It can be fun. It gives you something to look forward to each day.
Cool. Thanks.
Thanks, Sandy. I appreciate it.
Hey, this is Alicia. Thank you for doing this this training. I actually, some of you know that I just recently finished my my dissertation a few months back, and so for the last several years, I've been doing a lot of very technical writing, and I've been trying to figure out, this would be great, blog information to get out. However, it's just super technical. So hearing your message about really, sharing a story, I think is extremely helpful to me. So thanks for that.
Yay, I'm glad that resonated. Yeah. And I think the storytelling is just, it's such a buzzword right now online anyways, but like sharing stories that really showcase who you are and that are connecting to your audience, it's such a great way just to like build normal relationships and like that normal trust factor. So yeah. Yay, I'm glad that you're going to start sharing some more stories. So thank you so much for taking time out of your Monday to hop in here and just learn different ways to nurture your community and share value through stories and showing up consistently with your online space. If anybody has any questions, please feel free just to email me. If you are stuck and you're like, Darlene, I don't know what to do. Like I still am having trouble like showing up consistently and I don't know how to share my content. I would love to hop on a call with you and just give you a free mini session and get you unstuck, because there's nothing worse than not knowing how to attract those people towards you. So if you want to hop on the phone and just work through anything, let me know. I will send you a link and you can schedule through that. But it's just so important. Show up, be visible, connect with your audience, share stories, nurture them, love on them, and they are humans just like me and you. So they don't need to be sold to, like Annalyn was saying, like we don't want to be sold to all day long. We see enough of the gurus that are doing that online, and we know it doesn't sit well, and we know it's icky and it's not the fun way to do it. So just how can you share value and build those relationships? So let me know if you have questions or if you need anything at all. I'm always here and happy to help support you. So thanks for being on with me today. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.